consider it, quote, a very bad deal, but it appears that an agreement with Iran over its nuclear program could be moving closer tonight. The United States and 5 other nations are in talks with Iran in Switzerland. The U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry saying that negotiations will not be derailed by Benjamin Netanyahu's speech to the U.S. Congress earlier this week. Iran is also a key player, of course, in the war against ISIS in Iraq, where Iranian-backed forces and the Iraqi army are battling to liberate Tikrit. Between several rounds of negotiations in Montreux today, Iran's Foreign Minister Javad Zarif joined me to talk about these vital issues, and he says all sides are making tough choices to try to close that nuclear deal. Dr. Zarif, welcome back to the program.
Happy to be with you.
So let me ask you, is a deal imminent?
Well, it can be if there is a political will on all sides to make the decisions that need to be made. We have made some progress, but there are issues that are left to be decided. So we will have to work very, very hard for the next few weeks.
Are the issues around sanctions, are the issues around the length of time? For instance, President Obama this week said that the deal would require a halt of a lot of the nuclear activity for about 10 years at least.
Well, I'm not going to negotiate on the air. There are a lot of details that need to be discussed. We have made some progress. The object of this exercise is to ensure that Iran's nuclear program will always remain peaceful and to remove all the restrictions that have been imposed on Iran, in our view, unjustifiably. That is why we believe that we can, in fact, reach an agreement if there is the necessary political will to make the tough choices. And everybody has to make tough choices. We have made the choice to engage in negotiations, although we believe that this entire exercise was unnecessary. This was a manufactured crisis, as we have seen time and again. People have been predicting for the past 20 years that Iran was a year away from making a bomb, and that prediction has been proven wrong time and again. You can either have sanctions and continue to seek the path of confrontation, or try to resolve this issue through negotiations and through an agreement. I believe we are very close to the latter, but if people try to choose the former, that is their prerogative, but that's the wrong decision that they'll be making.
So let me pick up on several things. You believe you're quite close to making a deal, that it could be possible. You are obviously referring to the speech by the Israeli Prime Minister in Congress. As he was trying to make sure that deal didn't get signed or done, what was the effect on you all around the negotiating table?
Well, there was no effect on the negotiating table, but I can see that he is trying, and some people who associate with him try to create an atmosphere an atmosphere of hysteria, an atmosphere of fear-mongering based on lies and deception that try to prevent a deal from taking shape. And I do not see why, because the only explanation that you can have here is that some people consider peace and stability as an existential threat, because a deal cannot be threatening to anybody unless you want conflict and tension and mistrust and crises.
You also referred to what was important, and that was the idea of lifting sanctions in exchange for making sure that your program remains entirely peaceful. Are you making progress, and is there a satisfactory answer to lifting sanctions?
Well, not yet, but we have been making progress on a lot of issues, and we are dealing with those issues now. We cannot see this puzzle until we have finished it, and that is why we have resolved bits and pieces of each issue, but we are still some time away from resolving all the issues so that we can have I believe, a nice and acceptable picture that is in the interest of everybody, what we call a win-win situation for all.
You didn't answer the question. You said you weren't going to negotiate in public, but let me just put it to you blankly then. Is a 10-year moratorium on nuclear activity acceptable to Iran?
Well, it depends on how you define it. We have been talking about accepting by Iran voluntarily certain limitations. We have a huge peaceful nuclear program, which we have built by our scientists, by our own people. And this is a program that has been moving forward. We have accepted, and if we have an agreement, we will accept certain limitations for a certain period of time. But I'm not prepared to negotiate on the air, as you said, the length of time or what are these limitations that we will be voluntarily accepting.
Can I move on to Iraq? A great focus right now on the town of Tikrit, where Iraqi forces, other militias, and crucially Iranian forces are engaged in trying to push ISIS back. I would like to play for you a little bit of a soundbite from the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff to Congress regarding Iran's involvement.
This is the most overt conduct of Iranian support in the form of artillery and other things. Frankly, it will only be a problem if it results in sectarianism. If they perform in a credible way, rid the city of Tikrit, turn it back over to its inhabitants, then it will, in the main, have been a positive thing in terms of the counter-ISIL campaign.
How do you respond to what the general said, and how involved is, for instance, General Soleimani of the Quds Force of the Revolutionary Guard?
Well, we do not have forces on the ground in Iraq. We've always had advisors helping the Iraqi government and the Iraqi army. We were the first to come to the assistance of the Iraqis, both in Baghdad as well as in Erbil, when the ISIS started moving in massive numbers last summer. So we've been there. We've been assisting the Iraqi people. Everybody knows that without our assistance, things would have been different in Iraq. We are in Iraq in terms of advisors and other support, but without military personnel on the ground, fighting forces on the ground, as you say, boots on the ground, in order to help this very serious global fight against these extremist and terrorist groups. We hope that this could unite all Iraqis and all peoples of the region, because in spite of the short-sighted attempts in the past, now everybody has come to the conclusion that these extremist forces are a threat to everybody. They cannot be contained in Syria or in Iraq or in only several countries in this region. This is a global threat. You see the implications in Europe. You see the fact that they are recruiting from Europe. So this is a global problem. It requires global cooperation and global work.
Foreign Minister, President Rouhani has been tweeting about the talks. Let me just read you one of them. Quote, the international community happy with progress of Iran talks as it will result in more development, commerce, economic and cultural cooperation. Obviously, the president and yourself to an extent have staked the success of this government on these talks. How are you doing in trying to make sure this happens and that any kind of deal is accepted by the hardliners in your own country and is acceptable to the Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei?
Well, this is not about domestic politics. President Rouhani and I have never played domestic politics on this. Actually, this is not about national politics. This is about resolving an issue through diplomatic means that has been preventing tranquility and cooperation in our region for the past 15 years. This was a crisis that was manufactured from the very beginning, and the sooner we put an end to it, the sooner we can get to issues that are serious challenges and serious opportunities, both for our country as well as for our region and for the world. That is why we will not play domestic politics with this. President Rouhani will not play domestic politics with this. We want to resolve this issue, and we will do our best, provided that our partners are prepared to walk this road with us.
Well, let me ask you about domestic politics, because in early January, President Rouhani gave quite a tough speech at a meeting of economic and business leaders, and he did lay down the gauntlet. I guess, how is it going? Is he going to be able to pursue the economic reforms, the taxation that he needs, particularly as oil prices are plummeting?
Well, we have shown that in spite of sanctions and in spite of external pressure, we have been able to move forward. We have brought the inflation down. We have increased the growth. We took office in a very difficult circumstances, and we're moving forward. And we believe that we will build the necessary consensus. We welcome the possibility of engaging in a debate, domestic debate as well as regional and global debate on what is the best future for our country.